Welcome everybody to the War and Peace Baseball Podcast. I'm joined today by Alex Rudy. I'm Alex Uwe. Another one, just the two of us today. You're joining us from a new location today. That's pretty exciting, huh?
Without a doubt.
Getting comfortable in your new studio, so to speak.
Yeah, University of Michigan, West Quad Music Study Room is now the War and Peace Baseball Midwest office.
Now anybody that stumbles upon this will know where to find you. Dangerous, huh? Yeah. So a lot has happened in these last, I guess it's been about a week since we last did one of these. A lot of exciting stuff has happened. September call-ups, intense wildcard races. This is it. This is the last month, and teams are trying to wedge their way into that wildcard game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. We'll start off by talking about one of the scarier things that happened over the weekend, and that happened in Seattle, where Matt Shoemaker, the starting pitcher for the Angels, was hit in the head by a line drive and was immediately taken off the field. And he recently had surgery to stop bleeding, but it appears he's going to be okay. Small skull fracture, but it's a really scary sight whenever that happens. Did you happen to see any of that when that happened?
Yeah, it was a really disturbing image to watch, to be honest. I'm just thankful that he's alive and seems to have not suffered any serious permanent damage that we know of yet, regardless of, if he ever plays baseball again or this career. I'm just happy that, a life wasn't ended on the field like that. And it just shows you that the notion that the pitchers shouldn't be wearing protection on their caps is ridiculous, and that the argument that they don't look cool is just really not worth, moments like this.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the individual situation, like we're all wishing him the best of luck going forward, but really thinking more big picture is what is concerning, because every time one of these, incidents happen, and they happen, once or twice a year, it seems, the same argument is brought up. Should pitchers be protected a little bit better than they are right now? Because batters have their helmets, and that has been an incredibly useful feature in baseball for a long time now, but the pitchers have consistently been dealing with things like this, a lot more serious cases than even what Shoemaker had right there. It's an argument that really doesn't have a good one against it, and it's just really a matter of coming up with a good way to move forward on it, because I don't think anybody out there would say, oh, the pitchers don't need to be safer out there, because that's clearly not the case, and it's just a matter of, not altering things too rapidly or taking the pitchers out of their comfort zones in such a drastic way. But there are some really nice designs for, helmets that pitchers can wear on the mounds, and I don't exactly know how this is going to play out. What do you think 5 years from now? Do you think anything will be different, or do you think it's really not going to take much action?
That's a really interesting question. In 5 years, I think personally, not until a probably more aesthetically pleasing option is developed will it become a mandatory, everyone does it thing. At the very least, I don't think until someone is hit so badly that the MLB is just forced to, change the rules and force pitchers to wear one, because, at the moment, this is like the third or fourth time recently that a pitcher like Matt Shoemaker has gotten domed like that. I think McCarthy had the same thing last year. But because they haven't suffered, it sounds really depressing, but because they haven't suffered permanent issues that we know of yet, I think the MLB hasn't been given an incentive to, step in and say, this is not acceptable, and the pitchers need better protection.
Yeah, well, it's not like nobody's trying to figure this out, because there have been new designs pretty much every year. They displayed some during the spring training. It obviously doesn't have to look like the Alex Torres, the relief pitcher with the giant hat that was like twice as thick as any other hat. That's a little bit, I don't know. It's a little bit as you said, aesthetically unpleasing, but I think it's still going to be a slow process until, like you said, something really, really bad does happen and it forces their hands. It's not an issue that's controversial, really. There's nobody out there saying, like, oh, no, this is part of the game. Like, this should stay part of the game forever. No, it's not like that. Everybody wants these players to be safer. It's just a matter of how they're going to end up doing it. I think that's about it on that story, though, for now. We'll go ahead and talk about some new careers that have been started and probably some new life for a couple of these players that we're mentioning. It all starts in September for a lot of these guys, and as you know, the roster's expanded to the 40-man, and teams are going crazy with the bullpens and the young prospects, and I think it is one of the more interesting times of year to watch. Actually, a lot of people are not in favor of the expanded rosters. I just want to get your thoughts on how you think the expanded rosters affect the game. Is it positive? Is it negative?
Wait, why are people against it?
Just because it gives a lot of it just gives way too much flexibility, especially nowadays in terms of specialized bullpens. Like, the game is drastically different now. You can have an endless bullpen basically and throw matchups out there for every batter. There's a lot more options in that regard, and a lot of people think that kind of ruins the whole idea of playing out a full season with a given roster. You're just kind of taking that whole element out of the game. That is the argument against it. I personally like it. I like getting to see some new players in a situation where a lot of the big league guys are really tired at this point down the stretch, and it's a good time for that to happen. But what do you think about it in general?
I mean, I have no issue with it. I feel like there's really that many situations where the expanded roster has directly helped the team win, without a doubt.
Well, I would say
that was the difference.
I would say yes, absolutely.
Really?
There are many cases where that happens because you can throw out a different pitcher every third of an inning theoretically in a close game if you needed to and if you wanted to. And a lot of teams definitely do. You can look at the bullpen usage. It increases a lot at this time of year, especially because starting pitchers are used a little more conservatively too. That allows managers to go to the really deep bullpen more. It definitely does affect the game. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I think it's a good time for this kind of change to happen. I think it makes things more exciting, even. So,
I mean, I don't really see you. I mean, they're really are you saying playoff races are being decided by the expanded rosters? I mean,
I think in some cases obviously there's no
I don't
black
think
and
that's
white.
true. There's no way that's true because you need to even have made it this far. You've had to have the bullpens to keep leads. There's no way that the Red Sox and the Orioles and the Detroit and Washington and the Cubs and the Dodgers and San Francisco and St. Louis and there's no way that those teams are just and the other good teams are just staying up because they're manipulating their bullpens to win the games. I mean, they can do that so much already. I really don't see. I'm not saying you're claiming that that's a bad reason necessarily, but I don't really think it's a fair argument. And honestly, I love seeing these young guys step up and get some action late in September. I think it adds a ton of excitement, and I think it's fair to the teams that are out of the playoff race to get a chance to actually try their guys for the future and see what their team might look like next year, the next couple seasons, instead of having to essentially stick to guys who they don't see in their plans but are under contract and senior players on the team.
Yeah, and I mean, I get the argument that this really does not decide the playoffs just with 1 month out of the season, but it is a very important month where there are, especially this year, so many teams that are in a playoff race, and having that flexibility definitely does affect the game on a day-to-day basis. And if it gives certain teams an advantage, if they have deeper 40-man rosters, that definitely does play a part in that. Having the ability to go and have a deeper bullpen especially for teams that don't have necessarily that strong of bullpens. Like you mentioned, the Tigers, they don't have a strong bullpen, but now at least they have some flexibility in the back end there. And the argument isn't like, it is certainly helpful in many cases. Just the argument is it kind of tampering with like the balance of teams at this point? I personally don't think it is. I think it's great that these teams that really are struggling, like the Reds and the Braves and the Padres and all these teams, can bring up their young players, see what they can do, and they have this new life, and they're able to, possibly be more competitive even than they had been before. There's a lot of things along those lines. Let's talk about a few cases in particular that are standing out above the rest right now. Yoan Moncada, the Red Sox #1 prospect, has been brought up as a September call-up. This kid is one of the best pure athletes in the minor leagues for sure, but possibly even in the major league at this point. What do you think you can expect from Moncada going down the stretch here?
Holy shit, this guy is... It's just yet another unbelievably exciting young shortstop. Or I guess he's a third baseman technically, but, who's entered the major leagues in the past year or two, and I'm expecting him to frankly dominate, and maybe not Gary Sanchez dominate, but, I mean, he's...
You can't expect that from anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean... He's hitting he's barely played, obviously, but, and he's not struggled at least he's been 3 games, he's hitting 400. I mean, he already has an extra base hit. I think he's going to tear the league up, and I would expect him to even play every day starting next year. He's in my opinion, could be the next Alex Rodriguez. And I think the Red Sox I'm just still mad the Yankees couldn't sign them.
Yeah, and we saw this guy at the Futures game this year, and that was freaking awesome. He hit a home run in that game. He stole a base. This kid is one of the fastest guys in the minor leagues. No, that was Alex Bregman.
Yeah. Okay, my bad.
Another one of my favorite young players out there.
I think we're in the era of shortstops. Are we not? Or we're entering it?
Oh, for sure, with a lot of these young guys out there. I mean, Moncada and Bregman are third basemen as of right now, so we'll see what happens going forward.
They're natural shortstops. I mean...
Well, Moncada played most of his minor league career as a second baseman, actually, and then switched to third only this season. And then Bregman also just recently made the switch to third base this season. But, I think athleticism plays at any level, and when you're that level athlete, you can, at the very least... play very solid defense, be a spark plug out in the field. The running ability just provides so much, flexibility. He can be used as a pinch runner any day that he's not played. Obviously, he's not going to play every day. They still have Travis Shaw over at third base, who's, streaky, but, more reliable, I guess, than Moncada at this point. But I think what the Red Sox are going to do with Moncada is, put him in situations where he's more likely to succeed, get it in those good matchups, and then use his versatility, his speed, in any other tight situations to win games, because he is an electrifying player. Another electrifying player who was recently recalled to the Dodgers is Yasiel Puig, who has definitely had his problems and his ups and downs, and he's back, and the real question is he going to stay? Because the Dodgers look like they're on their way to the postseason, but without Puig, they were doing really, really well without him. So that is going to be an interesting one going down the stretch here.
Yeah, I mean, Yasiel Puig could be the most fascinating player in baseball. I mean, first of all, it feels like so long ago when he absolutely tore up the league as a rookie and started a huge debate if you should make the All-Star team when haven't played. I forgot how little he had played, but he had only played like a month in the major leagues. And he's been worse every single season. Essentially the past 64 games that he's played over this season and last have been not even mediocre. I would say below average. But he's still apparently only 25 years old, from what he claims. The guy's a gigantic fucking athlete, 6'2", 255. I don't think he's going to be on the Dodgers for long, personally. I think he's worn out his welcome, and he's clearly not. He's clearly a very difficult personality to get along with, but the talent is there. And then he's the type of guy who I don't like personally, but he's an exciting player. I think adds to the game's watchability and just the fun of baseball.
Yeah, and I think the Dodgers are going to trade him first chance they get in the offseason. They almost traded him, on waivers last month, but they, obviously that's not a great move for them. Might as well wait until the offseason where they can have their full selection in front of them there. But I don't think Puig is going. I'm just going to say it straight up. I don't think he's going to make the postseason roster. I don't think he should make the postseason roster. I think he can help them down the stretch in September because he is still an electrifying player, and that kind of energy does play in these times of year when teams are, tired. Players are tired. A lot of older guys on that team, guys like Howie Kendrick and Chase Utley, that roam the field basically on a daily basis now. I think Puig is not going to do much this month. I mean, he was okay. Like, he's definitely a major league player at this point. Like, he does not have any more to prove in the minors. But I just don't see it with him. Like, he has a little bit of power. He's got a little bit of speed. The average is very, very iffy. Like, there's so much concern with him, and it's just too much to rely on.
Should he just be a player that honestly just had one incredible hot streak, and that's what's been carrying him this entire time? If you think about it, I mean, even his 2014 season, which is his only full season that he's played in the majors. Okay, he had 296. That's fine, nothing special. 16 home runs, 11 stolen bases. It's not particularly unique production. I mean, it's good. But you're not. I mean, I guess he had 92 runs, and that was probably his best overall season. And I mean, those aren't superstar numbers. I mean, they're good. They're probably slightly above average numbers for an outfielder. But I don't think he's proven himself to be. I think he has too much hype for what he's really shown. Would you say that's an accurate?
Yeah, completely. I'm done with this superstar Puig notion, that idea that he is on the verge of breaking out at any moment now, because I don't see it coming. He's had so many chances to see it coming. You're saying it really hasn't been that much time. It has been a lot of chances that the Dodgers have given him, and I think he's going to be a great everyday player somewhere, just not, a superstar like we were all expecting. So, speaking of the Dodgers September call-ups, Jorge De Leon has also Jose. Is it Jose or Jorge?
I believe it's Jose De Leon.
Jose De Leon. I cannot believe I messed that up. I've followed this guy quite a bit actually, and he is up with the Dodgers. Just made his major league debut, and he is the first Dodgers pitcher ever to strike out 9 in a game without walking any in his major league debut. Fun fact of the day. He gave up 4 earned runs in that start, but strikeouts play in the major leagues, and I think he's going to be productive. The Dodgers are getting Kershaw back this weekend, this Saturday against the Marlins. He will be back, and he will, take the helm of a Dodgers ship that has really, really been good lately. And I think the Dodgers are in really good shape to hold their own against the Giants, who have been playing absolutely terrible lately.
In my opinion, if the Dodgers were able to not just stay in contention without Kershaw, but gain first place and build a lead, which
they had first place. They are in first place right now.
Gain first place and build upon it. I don't see them falling back to earth. I don't see any reason why they would. The Giants really blew it would seem to be a very easy division title to win, let's say in July. But, Kenta Maeda has been very solid. Their offense hits a ton of home runs. And I think this could be the Dodgers, year finally to, show, their payroll,
To show their payroll.
Show what their payroll brings to their team. And it's funny because a lot of their best players this year are guys on their cheapest contracts.
Oh, and at one point in this season, like last month, more of their payroll was on the DL than on their active roster, which is what is really curious about this, is the Dodgers in one of the, more miserable injury seasons that they've ever had are playing really good baseball. And
Yeah.
I think it's just the collection of guys that are actually, starting to play really well. They have a star in the middle infield now that can really, keep a team going with that positive energy and that winning mentality. Corey Seager brings all that to the table, and I hope he can make that final push with them too. Even without Kershaw there, they still had a lot of confidence. It's a fun team to watch, and I really hope for a change, because I'm not a Dodgers fan at all, but I really hope that they get the playoffs. And I think I've mentioned it before, if nothing else, just to hear Vin Scully in the postseason, that would be amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I also want to give just Alex Gonzalez a
Adrian
quick
Gonzalez?
shout out. Adrian Gonzalez, I'm sorry, Alex
Man,
Gonzalez.
we are
has been retired
screwing
for a
up the
while.
names like nobody's
It's okay.
business today.
That adds to the realness of the podcast.
We are real. We're not your TV.
Is he probably one of the most underrated players of his generation? I mean,
he is what he is. He's a really productive player consistently, and people know that he's like consistently one of the better players.
I don't think he
Well,
is enough.
he really hasn't had that good a season this year, which is why you don't hear it that much. But every year
What's wrong with his season this year? It's very productive.
Compared to he had a 110 RBI season last year. That he's not doing that this year, but he's still really good. He's not hitting for the same power as he used to. He's there. He's a really solid first baseman.
He is 34, so he should be on some decline. But I was saying this guy, has averaged 23 home runs and 87, RBIs, hitting in 290 since 2006. That's not for 10 years. That's nothing to, smirk at. He's a very dependable player. I don't know if he.
And I get that completely. It's really impossible to be underrated when you play in a city like.
That's true.
LA. That's not going to happen. So yeah, one last thing about September call-ups, one last player that I wanted to talk about who has been making me a very happy person. I'm sure he's making a lot of people very happy. He's making the Twins very happy. It's Byron Buxton, who has been recalled I think it's his 5th game. Since he's been recalled, he is tearing it up. I think he's 10 for 15 or something, 10 for 16, something like that. And he has had 4 homers, a ton of RBIs in the mix there. Only struck out 2 times in that span, and he has looked like a real baseball player. He's not afraid to swing the bat anymore. Apparently he added a leg kick, or re-added a leg kick or something that was that helps with his recent surge. And I just, they played against the White Sox in this weekend series where he did a lot of his damage. He hit home runs off of guys like James Shields and Anthony Renato and players like that. But it's a confidence builder, and I like what I'm seeing so far from Buxton. Hopefully he can have a really hot September and become a relevant player again. Really, he really has not been relevant at all this year. So good for him. Good for the Twins, I guess, who have officially been eliminated, by the way. So no more pressure there. At least they can take a break there. Let's talk about an AL Central team who is definitely not been eliminated. In fact, they are leading the division, and that's the Indians, who have added Coco Crisp to their final postseason run. It's a nice addition. I think they needed Crisp because they are going to lose Abraham Almonte for the postseason because of his suspension earlier this year. They needed that extra outfielder. But Coco Crisp is consistently one of the solid players when healthy, but is always unhealthy kind of guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Coco Crisp has had one just bizarre career, I feel like. His name
One bizarre name to go
withstand,
along with
yeah,
it.
withstanding. He always seems to spring out of the headline into the headlines out of nowhere. Um, I don't think this is like a World Series winning edition, but I doubt they gave up anything from considering it's the A's.
It's interesting you
And
say that because I wanted to ask you, do you think the Indians are a World Series winning type of team at this point?
I think there's no reason they're not have a chance. I mean, I don't think they're the favorites, but I mean, 79-56 is that
But
that's
let's
the
ask ourselves, why aren't they the
second best record
favorites?
because they're the Indians. The Indians are never the favorites.
But based on strictly based on their roster and how
Okay,
they've
well,
been playing, not based on their history, but
okay, which thing do you think makes them? I would say usually to be a main World Series contender, you have to be the best at something, right? Would you say that's fair or very,
well,
very,
okay,
very good at
if you need them to be the best at something, they arguably have the best starting pitching of that bunch, um,
I
because they
think
do have
it's
Salazar back now.
pulled
And
down. Oh, I think their pitching is it's still arguably the best, but I don't think it's as good as we were thinking it was. Let's say 2 months ago.
And even so, they're still one of the better ones out there. Corey Kluber's been really good. Carlos Carrasco is consistently very good. Salazar has been a little bit iffy lately, and he's been dealing with some arm issues, but he seems to be back now. He is a strikeout machine, and he is really good when he does play. Trevor Bauer, same kind of thing, has been really streaky, but has a lot of upside there. Still very strong number 4 starter, and that's really what you need in the postseason.
I would say my comparison for them would be like the 2011 Braves. I think that's them. Is that or is that? I think that's
The
not
Chris
the one.
Medlin's Mighty Braves.
Okay, maybe it's
Is that what you're referring
2012.
to?
Okay, 2013. There we go. When
Is
they
that
won the NL East. 2013 Braves. That team had arguably one of the best starting pitching staffs in the league. They had a very solid lineup where not one guy stood out as incredible, but
I disagree with that. The Indians definitely have at least one standout player in Francisco Lindor. You can argue that Jason Kipnis has been,
Lindor is an incredible offensive player.
That tandem in that lineup, extremely underrated. They have a really underrated lineup.
I think you're incredible. You're giving a little bit too much. I mean like superstar.
Like Manny Machado.
Yes.
I think Lindor is Manny Machado, almost. Almost there.
Well, almost exactly is my point.
That's close. See, they're the same caliber in my mind. Just a little bit disparity in the power department. Right. But I still give Lindor a lot of credit for what he's done.
Okay, but my point is that team lost in the first round of the playoffs.
But this team is managed by Terry Collins. Not Terry Collins. Wow, Terry Francona.
And this Indians team is very young and hasn't proved themselves in the playoffs. And I'd like to see why shouldn't they earn my trust before I just go all in on them? I mean, I think they are a contender, but I don't think they are a favorite because I think the Cubs, the Nationals, and Texas all have a little bit more, I would say, veteran experience. And I think that matters. They have a bit more of that it factor, in my opinion. And I could be completely wrong about that, but I don't see any reason to pick the Indians as that number one team to go all the way. I think they're one of them, but I don't see anything that stands out as that. For this reason, they're going all the way.
Yeah, well, those strong National League teams you mentioned obviously are at the top of anybody's list, really, when you're thinking about it. But in the American League side, you mentioned Texas, and that's really the only team close to being better than them, really. I think that's the only team that's arguably better than them. But here's my thoughts on why the Texas Rangers are in a little bit of trouble right now, and that's because you have Cole Hamels, you have Yu Darvish, and then what do you have? You have to throw Derek Holland and Martin Perez out there at least once or twice in a series. Like, you can't just throw your top guys every day. It is not the same situation in terms of starting pitching. They don't have the same caliber bullpen as Cleveland does with Andrew Miller, and the supporting cast in the bullpen's been really good too, especially as of late. I think that's a big separator. Their offense is unbelievable in Texas right now, but I think their pitching might be in a little bit of trouble. That's just what I think, and
That's fair.
We'll see how that plays out.
That's
Obviously,
totally fair.
But these are the top tier teams. Let's talk about, for a little bit, some of the more interesting races, the wild card races, because there are so many teams bidding for those 2 spots right now. And in the American League, you've got, you're going to have either the Orioles, the Blue Jays, or the Red Sox. At least one of those teams in there, and they all currently hold spots right now. The 2 that aren't at the top of the division, they're all pretty close right now. But, there's a lot of teams nipping at their tails, including the Yankees in the same division, the Detroit Tigers, the Houston Astros, the Kansas City Royals, the Kansas City Fight Club. I corrected myself. The Mariners, and, that is really competitive. And actually, Detroit does currently hold the second wildcard spot, tied with Baltimore. I mentioned a lot of teams, but only 2 make it. So which 2 do you think have the best shot to take it home? As of right now, these are a little bit of early bold prediction action going on here.
I think Boston has it, even though it's not like they have some gigantic lead necessarily. I just can't. That team is so much.
Well, do you think
talent.
Boston's going to win the division? Because they're in the lead right now. Well, no, I guess Toronto just passed them.
They're a game out.
Yeah. Do you think Toronto or Boston,
if I had to bet my money, I would bet on 3 AL East teams making the playoffs. Detroit got really, really hot really quickly. Excuse me. Which I give them a ton of credit for. I think they were under 500 at one point.
Detroit was?
I'm pretty sure in May they were under 500, yeah. So they made a hell of a comeback. And there's no doubt that they have a strong team. And they easily can make it, but I think Baltimore, who has a possibly MVP winning closer, it's very unlikely the case can be made. And Boston are just slightly slightly better than them. That's my opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of these teams that are really, really close are some really good ball clubs right now. You want to talk about coming out of nowhere. The Fight Club was really struggling, and then they went on an 8-game winning streak, had the best record in August in all of baseball. I don't know. They're scary. They're scaring me because I don't really like their team, but they seem to just be able to win games. They're pulling a lot of that voodoo magic that they're famous for, especially recently. I don't know, because they're only 4 out right now, and a couple head-to-head matchups here and there. They could easily be right back in it, and then, who knows from there. But Houston is a really interesting team. They were almost a shoo-in going into the season.
Right.
And they're looking from the outside in, only 2.5 out. Do you think they stand a chance?
No. Do you ever just have that feeling that this team just doesn't have what it takes?
I do, but I don't trust that feeling ever.
I just don't see. They don't seem. How could this? I'm not going to believe in a team that was this good last year out of nowhere and regressed that much. All that tells me is that they overperformed and got lucky last year, and that they were supposed to regress, to be honest.
Well, their pitching certainly did regress, and that's the biggest difference. Colin McHugh and Dallas Keuchel were not productive 1-2 pitchers this year, especially. And Keuchel is actually he's missing his next start and is going to see a team doctor in Houston, so we'll see what his availability is like going down the stretch even. But that's the biggest difference.
What if I told you that the Yankees were going to trade their 3 best players and just be 1 game behind Astros, the Astros in the playoff hunt this season? If I told you that 6 months ago, you'd call me a lunatic.
Okay, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that, because here's what I've been thinking recently. Where would they be if they didn't trade these guys and still brought up Gary Sanchez and did that whole thing that they did.
That's true.
Because really,
Have they,
they
have they
haven't
lost
gained
a lot of
anything yet.
close? Have they lost a lot of close games because of their bullpen?
They've lost a few. Their bullpen has definitely been noticeably weaker. Like the Anthony Swarzak era cannot last very long. They need to make some changes soon if they want to contend.
I still think they made the right decision because they got one. They had such great returns for who they gave up, and I don't think they ever had a chance of catching up.
But, like, part of you has to feel like they're kicking themselves because they're in such a good position now, and they don't have
I
it.
disagree with you. They're not in a good position. There's 4 teams ahead of them, plus 1 in the division standings, and I would much rather have a top farm system in the league than have 5% more chance of making the playoffs. And honestly, we made the wild card round last year, and that sucked. It sucked to get in just to lose after one game and be done. I fucking hated it. I would rather have the hope for next season than have to deal with that again. To be completely honest, I love the wild card game from like a non-supporter standpoint when I'm a neutral, but I despise it if I'm rooting for the team. It's beyond frustrating.
It is incredibly frustrating. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of that argument that the wild card game, like the two wild card spots, they're really, really hard to get into. But people say, "Hey, just get us in and we have a chance," or they say, "Get us in and we can lose right away." Like there's both sides of that. What team was it? The Pirates know plenty about that at this point. They consistently are like,
yeah, exactly.
The
so
wild card.
I'm sure the Pirates fans were really happy when they broke their 20-year playoff drop. I'm sure at this point they're just very frustrated that they can't get over the hump. And they don't seem to have the payroll to ever really, with this generation, make it. And they arguably wasted the prime of the best player since Barry Bonds that they had. So,
yeah. I mean, like they're not out of it right now either. And let's talk about the National League a little bit.
I think they're out of it.
They're 4.5 games back, and that's not good.
September.
But the wild card teams that are holding spots right now, not the strongest of teams. The San Francisco Giants really concern me, and that's something that I never thought I'd say this year.
What I think is interesting is that I believe the National League has, in my opinion, and you can argue with me, but I think they have two of the best 3 teams in the game, in my opinion. But the depth is, I think, way stronger in the American League, and it really shows in the wild card standings in the fact that the worst Cardinals team in probably like 6 or 7 years has firmly been in one of the 2 spots all season. A Mets team that suffered a ton of injuries and bad luck and is probably underperforming a little bit and having a disappointing season.
Horribly managed, not to mention.
Yeah. Coming off of World Series year, and just like you said, a Giants team, which on paper has so much talent, is not playing well at all.
Well, they've bit the injury bug a bit too, but
there's teams the Dodgers have had way worse injuries than them.
That's true. There's no excuse for injuries at this point. The Mets really, I think, are not gonna make it. They just don't have enough juice. They don't have the starting pitching to make that final push. They have 2 really, really strong pitchers, and then obviously big sexy Bartolo Colon, good old reliable, but it's just not enough, I think. Their offense is really not that good. Jay Bruce has not been what they needed. Yoenis Cespedes is still really productive, but you're not driving anybody in if nobody's getting on base for you. So, I don't know. They're a weird team. They're only 1 game out. They still do have a lot of really good pieces. They just can't. I don't think they're going to make a push. I think the Giants are going to get in, and I think the Cardinals and Pirates, as they do a lot of years, are going to have a nice, good old-fashioned fight to the very end for that second spot. The Marlins, I don't think, have it in them either. Just they're pretty close. They're 5 games out. They just don't have enough either. The Marlins are like that team that makes no sense why they're performing as well as they are. Really, like their starting pitching is nothing special.
Their best players out for the season.
Yeah, and I mean Christian Yelich has been really, really impressive in carrying that offense, but like there's nothing around him really. You know, you're starting a Danny Echeverria and Martin Prado every day still in the
They're
infield.
starting 42-year-old Ichiro. As much as I love him, you shouldn't be starting him if your goal is to make the playoffs.
I guess not, like, because it's really not a pretty lineup right now.
I mean, clearly D. Gordon was helped by the juice. I'm sorry. There's just no way
D. Gordon, I think, will be fine long term, just because his game is really not changed. He's still really, really fast. You know, the average will be bumped up by that speed that he has. Long term, I'm not worried about him. So, yeah, and then also, anybody out there who still thinks Rocktober might happen, I'm sorry to say that you're probably wrong. If it happens, I will be just as ecstatic as the next person, but the Rockies 6.5 games out, not looking too good for them. Do you think that if the Rockies, even get within 3 games of the wild card game, like even if they don't get the spot, do you think the closer they get, the better chance Nolan Arenado has to win an MVP?
That's a really good question. I mean,
you started out like that. Like what kind of question is that? Wait, that is a good question. That's what happened right there.
I was just caught off guard. I hadn't thought about Arenado's season in a while because I just don't really think about the Rockies since I despise them and they just make me sad.
You despise them? I thought you despise the Diamondbacks.
No, I despise the Rocky and Diamondback ownerships.
They're not the same team. They're different teams.
They've made the similar mistakes though. I mean, why not? I mean, who do you think is the guy? Who's clearly ahead of them in the NL?
Kris Bryant.
MVP. So he's probably going to win at this point. That's who I was thinking too.
I'll give a few side-by-side stats here, just so you know. Kris Bryant.
Arenado's season is disgusting. There's no doubt.
Yeah, Kris Bryant, 302 average, 36 homers, 91 ribs, 8 stolen bases, 973 OPS. He has over 100 runs scored at this point too, I should mention. And Arenado has a 293 average, 36 homers, 117 RBI, and a 940 OPS. So I guess Kris Bryant, even offensively, has done a lot more than Arenado has, which is insane because Arenado is really good. Kris Bryant is even better, I guess. So I don't think there's a great argument there to be made, but I think the point is it really sucks that Nolan Arenado and Mike Trout are not playing meaningful games this time of year. I heard this the other day. Like, could you imagine how shitty the NBA would be if LeBron James never made the playoffs? Like,
right, but that's like not a really good comparison because
why is it not a good comparison?
Because that would never happen. He's only missed the playoffs like once in his entire career.
Yeah, the construct of the sport obviously does not allow for that to be the case. But like, it's just as it's the same principle.
Actually,
it's just
I'm
as
wrong.
disappointing.
There is a great comparison. DeMarcus Cousins is probably one of the top 25 players in the league. He always misses the playoffs. So you're right. He's not really as good as, let's say, Arenado or Trout are.
Trout's the best player in baseball. Yeah, he never sees the playoffs.
And I think it's kind of one of the reasons why it's really kind of dumb. It's pretty dumb to only give the MVP award to a guy on a playoff team.
It is incredibly dumb.
You really can't. That's just not. You can't affect your team. One player can't bring a team to the playoffs in the MLB, I believe. Maybe you disagree. I don't think.
No, it's absolutely impossible for one player to do it.
I mean, Trout's season is just disgusting.
Mike Trout should have 5 MVP awards at this point, and he doesn't. He has 1. And it was his worst season was the season he won the MVP.
Well, I can't believe Mike Trout's been in the MLB for 5 years already. Doesn't that feel crazy?
It is crazy. Like, he's still a kid.
He's having his best season since his sophomore campaign, which was... I mean, this is probably his best season of his career. Would you say if he can make it to 30 2 home runs maybe. Could he get 5 more this month? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, like
Round
the
up.
power is definitely down. Like he was a 40
Yeah,
home run guy last year,
yeah, 41.
but
His
this
average
guy
is
he
way
has a
up.
443 on base this year.
He has a 1.016 OPS. He has 9.2 WAR. I don't think he's appreciated enough because one, his team sucks, and two, he just doesn't have that. He doesn't have the Harper personality, for example, and he still is completely bowed down to a pawn. I mean, I saw this video of a kid who was literally crying because Mike Trout signed his ball, which I would.
Yeah,
I
that
would
went viral.
do.
That was really awesome.
So, yeah, who's going to win the American MVP, you think?
Mookie Betts, Jose Altuve, Mike Trout, to name a few.
Well, I mean, I think, can you give it to...
Josh Donaldson's in the mix
Let
as
me
well.
ask you this. Can you give it to... The Astros probably aren't going to make the playoffs probably either. Can you really give it to our boy Jose Altuve if you're not going to give it to Trout?
I really want to, but I can't. Like, if it's got to be Trout. Like, it's in my mind, it's got to be Trout, unless like, I mean, stats can change obviously in the last month. Unless the only guy that I think is even like close. I mean, some of these guys are close, but the only guy that I think could legit deserve it over Trout right now is Josh Donaldson, because he is really, really good. And, like, he's the reigning MVP. That doesn't mean anything, but he is doing what he did last year. Actually, he's doing better than he did last season. And, there's still a lot for him to do. He'll be a 100 player again. He'll hit more than 35 home runs, possibly 40, I don't know. He'll have an OPS close to 1,000. Like, he's amazing at, like, he's still the MVP caliber player he is, but he's still not Mike Trout. Mike Trout is having an unbelievable year. It's got to be him for me.
I think one last thing I want to add was that...
Oh, you are cut out there.
Is it kind of like when
you cut out there? Didn't get any of your last thought there. So start over.
I just wanted to add. Am I good right now?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add. Like, I feel like we're in an era of like just very well-rounded hitters. Does that make any sense? Like, the best hitters are just so well-rounded. And I don't know if, like, say 10 years ago, the best players were this.
Well, Albert Pujols was incredibly well-rounded.
Right, but I feel like all the best players, are hitting for a very solid amount of power, a very solid amount of, hits, a very solid amount of doubles, a very, they walk very decently. They have a lot of very high on base. Like, I feel like maybe when we were growing up, it was kind of like, oh, there's the top sluggers, there's the top on base guys, there's the top doubles guys. You know what I'm saying? Is that just a broad incorrect generalization, or is it?
No, it's not incorrect. They're definitely.
Or do you think like we're in an era where the top guys are just incredibly balanced? Is that fair or not really?
No, yeah, the top guys are better athletes all around. I mean, obviously the steroid era was full of some like really impressive, beefed up athletes, but like you look at these guys now, they are just as athletic as ever, and in every aspect of the game, a lot of these guys play unbelievably great defense, and that is something that you have to keep an eye on there. They play with their hair on fire. They play, really smart baseball. There's so much coaching out there. Like, there's so many different elements that make it different than it was even 10 years ago. There's so much more information for them to process and use, like a lot more video, a lot more analytics with their swings and all that kind of stuff. It's a different era of baseball altogether, where being a really complete player is easier than it's ever been when you have that much athletic ability. That's my quick final thought on that whole thing. So let's go ahead and move on. It's been going for a while here, but we are going to do one last segment. We're going to do our WAR report, which is something that we started last week, and that's where we go through the players with the top wins above replacement in the last 2 weeks of the MLB season. So I will go from the top down here, and we'll talk about a few of these players. Mike Trout, appropriately at the top
I
of
think
this with
I think
1.4
we
wins above replacement in the last 2
I
weeks.
think we said our piece on him just now. So
You know what? I'm feeling round 2. Let's have another
okay,
long
go
rant
for it.
about Mike Trout. No, that maybe not. If you really want to hear another rant, just rewind this podcast a little bit and hear it again. He is up there at the top, though. Asdrubal Cabrera, the second highest WAR in all of Major League Baseball, with 1.3. Yes, it's. I have the right Cabrera there. It's not Miguel. It's not Melky. It's not. He's probably like the 5th Cabrera that I'd expect, like out of all the
Can I just
Cabreras,
say
to be second
something
on
that
this
I
list.
just don't? I just fascinates me incredibly about him
What?
and his teammate. He has 19 home runs and only 48 RBIs, and his teammate Curtis Granderson has 23 home runs and only 43 RBIs. That is beyond impressive.
Terry Collins is doing a great job over there in New York.
How does that even make sense? It's like that means you get an RBI for every home run. I mean, if it's solo, you know what I'm saying? Like, those have to be close to all-time records as just random stats of least amount of RBIs for most amount of home runs.
I would have to agree with you there. That is pretty weird. Asdrubal Cabrera having a nice little career turnaround, though. He's definitely been solid. Like, there's no argument there. Playing a good defense and swinging the bat a little bit, hitting a lot of home runs. I think this is like the most home runs he's had in like this short stretch in his career, so good for him. So next tier down on this list, a few more expected names with Chris Bryant, Freddie Freeman, and Brian Dozier, who has absolutely exploded, and he's basically had a full season's worth of production since the All-Star break. Like a normal one of his seasons since the All-Star break.
Right.
Which is insane. Let's pull up his stats since the All-Star break if we can, because they are freaking insane. While I do that, though, Chris Bryant, Freddie Freeman, very different players. One playing for a World Series contender, one playing for, well, let's just say not a World Series contender this year. I don't really know what to expect from Freeman going forward, because he has been solid, but he hasn't been this good ever. Like, he is playing way above what anybody thought he would be doing.
It really came out of nowhere too. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, he'd been disappointing, to be honest, for like 2 to 3 whole seasons after he came up as a 20-year-old, in his first season, a 21-year-old, and kind of had an outstanding year. But yeah, I mean, it's too bad it's on a team that is terrible and trying to rebuild, but very impressive. He
seems really Joey Votto-esque in just his plate approach and his power, and like I don't know. He's just having a lot of really good production.
That's a good guy to
That's a good guy to emulate.
Yeah, exactly.
Even his demeanor off the field is, something.
I mean, something.
It's funny because you think about like how these guys' personalities. If you were on the Reds or the Braves or the Rockies, and you were an MVP caliber player, would you be very happy on a day-to-day basis? I wouldn't be.
I don't think I'd be happy.
It explains a little bit.
I mean, I think I'd be content, maybe. I don't think I would be, off my rocker,
Like, Nolan Arenado is not a happy fellow either out there in Colorado.
I mean, these guys are the best competitors in the world. That's how they got
Freddie Freeman does not smile very much on the baseball field, I will say, compared to some other people out there. So it's tough for them to be where they are. Just throwing that out there. I couldn't pull up. Here we go. Post All-Star break for Brian Dozier. This is really stupid the way this is laid out. Okay. So in 50 games since the All-Star break, he has 24 homers and 48 RBI and 6 stolen bases, 327 average, and an OPS of 1.135. Good on you, Brian Dozier. He's
I thought
impossible
Brian.
to project now. That's all he's done, really, is
Yeah,
made
that's what I was gonna tell you. Say, I kind of thought okay, Brian Dozier was a guy who came out of nowhere, had a really good season or two, and then was just kind of gonna fall back to earth and obscurity, and be solid maybe, but nothing special. Maybe like an Aaron Hill-esque career. But he
that's
said, "Fuck."
ugly. I don't like that.
Aaron Hill was amazing for a couple seasons.
Eh,
He was
ugly.
very good. But my point is, he said, "Fuck you, Rudy. I'm going to have my best season after a very slow
He
first
said
half." And
fuck you to a lot of doubters out there, I'm going to
I
say.
have no idea how he's having this kind of season, but good for him. And
Yeah. And I'm going to say right
very
now,
impressive.
I'm just going to brag a little bit here. I have a fantasy team that, it's a really, really strong fantasy team. And, for a while, Brian Dozier and Justin Upton were my two weakest players on that team. And I'm happy I hung on to them. I'll just say that much.
He
I saw it through.
He reminds me of Jeff Kent quite a bit. I think they're pretty comparable players.
That's pretty high praise right there. I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, borderline Hall of Famer. So,
Yeah.
without
Brian
doubt.
Dozier now with the second. This is the second, not the second highest total, but the second player to reach this home run plateau in team history, other than Harmon Killebrew.
Wow, that's also very high praise.
Really, really cool for him. So keep it up. A few more players to mention here on the WAR report. These players all had WAR a wins above replacement of 1.1. Nolan Arenado, Gary Sanchez, Josh Donaldson, all expected, but Ender Inciarte sneaking up on this list here. Another sneaky guy out there. Another
That's
sneaky
just
brave.
good for him. That's all I can really.
D-backs could have had him. They could have had the player with the fourth best WAR in all of baseball in the last 2 weeks, and they traded him away. Fools. Absolutely foolish.
Did you know that he played for the Phillies at one point?
Inciarte did? I mean, I believe it. He doesn't seem like he was ever a top prospect anywhere, so I believe he bounced around. I can see that. Yeah, so he's obviously not like the other guys here. Sanchez still doing okay. Obviously the power's gone down a little bit, but he's still getting hits and still hitting in the middle of the order. So.
I mean, let's be honest. He was never going to keep that up. He was never projected to be anywhere near this.
That is true.
I mean, he had literally had a top. I read an article saying he had a top 10 offensive stretch all time. He was actually 9 out of anyone ever. Just a stretch of hitting. So clearly that was an unbelievably ridiculous pace to maintain. But I'm just agreeing with you. He's still maintaining. He's not cooled down completely. I mean, he hasn't had a 2-hit game since the 28th, so he's clearly kind of slowly decreasing. But one thing I think is really impressive that is not being discussed is his walk rate is, I think, very impressive. 14 walks for 28 strikeouts as a rookie. But not a lot of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of young guys' biggest issue offensively is strikeout. And Gary Sanchez, from when I knew was a minor league player, I didn't think plate discipline would be one of his things. Really impressed me. Second thing, he's a way, way, way better fielder than I thought he would ever be.
I knew he was a good defender, and you said he's one of the worst defenders. I'm like, well, he has a strong arm, so I don't know.
I always read that he was a very poor plate protector and pitcher manager, but clearly he's improved that to at least be major league quality, but his arm is insane. His arm's insane. There's just no doubt.
That part has not been a secret.
He's definitely ready to take the mantle from Jorge Posada. As the Yankee catcher. I don't know if he'll end up being an all-time. Yankees have had so many all-time great catchers: Munson, Yogi, Posada. But it seems like Sanchez is the real deal. I'm looking forward to those next couple of seasons.
Just to make a quick note, remember that Aaron Judge spiel I gave last week or whatever? I was very wrong. sorry, Aaron Judge is poop right now. There's
I
nothing.
mean,
There's no positives to see. He's striking out multiple times, pretty much every game. I'm not happy anymore. I'm less happy than I was.
doesn't have the
He is
makeup of a
not.
guy
He's
you
not
would think.
handling the adjustment period well at
But
all.
he's the type of player he is. Those guys don't usually handle it. He's not a finesse hitter. He's kind of like, he reminds me of Trumbo a little bit. Probably not quite as much power, but when Trumbo first came up to the major leagues, kind of type player.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
fair comparison.
and
I
I
just thought I'd note how very foolish my little breakdown of him last week was.
I think he's going to take a while to gestate, is all.
Yeah, hopefully it happens. So one last player to mention the WAR report. I just threw everybody with a WAR of 1 or higher in the last 2 weeks on this list, and Dustin Pedroia had a WAR of 1 in the last week, which leads Red Sox in that span. So good for him. Former MVP. It's kind of weird to think about how long ago he won the MVP,
It feels like Dustin Pedroia is like 48 years old, and I feel like he's like, even though he's only 33, he's like from that Mauer Votto generation. I feel like those guys are all in like the same hump where like they're just past their primes as a new generation.
Well, Votto is still
take up the mantle.
Votto still looks like he's in his prime.
Well, so does Pedroia is still hitting 324 and 130.
Yeah, but Votto's a 300, 400, 500 hitter. I've mentioned that impressive line on the show.
But I was more just saying, like Adrian Gonzalez too. I was more just saying, like, this is like the previous generation of top players. And even though I hate the Red Sox as a Yankees fan, I've always respected Pedroia and what he brings to the game, and it's good to see that he's still, he's kind of. After a couple of very, very injured seasons, he's back to his old self, at least at some capacity.
Yeah, he's the original Jose Altuve. I don't know if you remember that. Like, he was the role model for any person that was slightly lower stature. So I definitely took a lot of inspiration from him in my game. One quote that I will never forget, a trainer of mine who once referenced Dustin Pedroia, who said, "Train like you're 5'8", even if you're shorter than 5'8" or taller than 5'8". Train like you're 5'8", which really makes no sense, but it's just a cool little quote that he.
Do you think he could make the Hall of Fame?
Sure. He has one more in the last 14 days. He's adding to it. Still, so
I don't know what that has to do with the Hall of Fame, but okay.
I'm just bringing that up. He's still being really productive.
Yeah, definitely.
Point. Like, he doesn't look like he's done. There's no sign of that. So that is going to do it for today. That was a pretty fun one. Any final thoughts before we send off the listeners? Before I plug all the links below.
I'm excited for this. Home stretch of the season. It's the best part of the season, in my opinion. And this is when the best drama, the best suspense is happening. So I'm excited.
Yeah, my only final thoughts are. Hopefully I didn't jinx you, Byron Buxton, but please be a superstar. That's about all I've got there. I'm going to go ahead and, give you a few of the places where you can give us feedback or check out some other content that we have. Check us out on Twitter at WPB_podcast. Check out our website. The link for that is down below. It's a recently remodeled website, actually. Completely redone. It's fresh. It's new. It looks really cool. It's got all our podcasts and articles and things. It's really cool. So please go check it out and tell us what you think. You can email us at warandpeacebaseball@gmail.com, and any other links that we have will be down in the description as well. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll be back next week. Hopefully all three of us will be here for the next one. But thank you, and I think I lost Rudy here in the call somehow. So I'm going to go ahead and do something I've never done before.
Wait, how did you lose me in the call?
Oh, you must have cut out there for... I couldn't hear your thing went away for a while.
Okay.
You're here, though, so we are going to do it the good old-fashioned way. As always, thank you for joining us, Rudy!
Peace.
Yeah.